The senior seminar class is a capstone class, and the math department as a whole decided that it was very important for students to do an oral presentation and a written presentation. I gave them specific problems. There were 11 students in the class. I just want to talk about 3 of the papers. And I defined the problem. They had to do a write-up of the problem. For most of them, this one right here, I won't show the name, was about premiums for life insurance policies. Their biggest problem was starting. Once they get, it's always the first 3 paragraphs are very clumsy, and then when they get into it, that's fine. One thing they can do is they can write too much, because math paper should be very clear, very clean. Define your terms and get to the problem. Now, what this particular paper is really good is at defining terms. It looks like a very long paper, but actually much of it is charts. And what she does is, you can see just a paragraph before it, it really clearly defines what this chart is all about. And I can tell that the problem is absolutely correct. What she did is exactly what I wanted her to do. This is to an audience of math majors. So I'm not entirely sure a layperson could read this paper. It's not like a history paper. But she did do exactly what I wanted her to do. Now this one, see a little chart there, the little graphic. The graphic's really good. It helped a lot clarifying the problem. She does a better job of clarifying her particular problem, which has to do with stepping stones and the probability of winding up there before you do there. The important part of her problem is that she's going to use a technique we did in class, and she has to relate her problem to the technique, so to make sure the definitions are correct. This satisfies my definition of what's called a Markov chain. She solves the problem, and again, the solution is a set of matrices. And the techniques are something we learned in class, and the amount of sentences is actually minimal. So don't write too much. Just make sure you make your point, move on to the next thing. So again, very clean, very succinct paper. Don't try to write War and Peace. Math papers are much like this. This one right here, it's a little bit more technical. What the woman is doing is she's proving the central limit theorem. Defining the problem, she does a little bit better job than the other two and say, this is my problem, this is what I want to solve. There are quite a bit of really, really technical calculations in here. This paper here, even a student would have problems following it because it's really too technical. And what was interesting is they gave their oral presentation prior to giving me the written presentation. So they had a draft when they made the oral presentation. By the oral presentation, we were able to find gaps in the paper, different terms that weren't defined sufficiently, calculations where there really wasn't a lot of explanation. And she did a good job of correcting her paper based on our whole presentation. That the paper is, again, absolutely correct. Right? There's not a lot of extraneous writing here, things for no point. Everything has a point. She defines her terms correctly. She bridges the calculations, how she got from one to another. And of course, a lot of this is looked up, so it's all cited correctly. And that was important because I had to look up her citations and make sure that she understood this, but that it was correct.